Welcome back to the channel, tennis fans. Today, we are diving into a performance so breathtaking, so utterly dominant, that it has sent shockwaves to the hallowed grounds of the All England Club. If you thought you knew what to expect from this year's Wimbledon Championships, think again. What we just witnessed on the immaculate lawns of London was nothing short of a tennis masterclass, an exhibition of raw power and tactical genius that has completely redefined the landscape of the women's draw. We are talking about the sensational Philippine prodigy, Eala, and the absolute destruction she unleashed against Mexico's Renata Zarazúa in their highly anticipated first-round encounter. The headlines are screaming, the fans are buzzing, and the tennis world is asking one collective question. How did a 21-year-old rising star manage to completely dismantle an experienced tour veteran with such ruthless efficiency? The answer lies in what can only be described as a newfound superpower. Eala, entering Wimbledon as a seeded player for the very first time in her career at number 29, did not just defeat Zarazúa. She left her absolutely helpless, searching for answers and grasping at thin air. It was a statement victory that resonated far beyond court number 3. This was not a typical tennis match. It was a devastating display of a newly forged weapon that Eala has perfected during a phenomenal grass court swing. Today, we are going to break down every single element of this historic demolition. We will explore the biomechanics of Eala's devastating left-handed forehand, the psychological warfare that took place between the baselines, an incredible journey that brought her from a heartbreaking loss to Zarazúa 2 years ago to dealing out absolute punishment on the game's biggest stage. Grab your favorite drink, settle in, and get ready for an incredibly deep dive into the match that is everyone talking. This is a story of how Eala's superpower took over Wimbledon. To truly appreciate the magnitude of what transpired on the pristine Wimbledon grass, we have to rewind and set the stage. The context leading up to this first-round clash is absolutely crucial. Eala arrived in London not just as a participant, but as a legitimate threat, riding a wave of momentum that most players can only dream of. The 21-year-old has been on an absolute tear, piecing together a grass court season for the ages. She captured the title in Birmingham, showcasing a level of maturity and comfort on the slick surface that belied her age. But she didn't stop there. She marched into the Berlin Tennis Open and tore through the draw, reaching the semifinals by pulling off jaw-dropping upsets over back-to-back top 10 opponents, including former Wimbledon champion Elena Rybakina and the ever-dangerous Alina Svitolina. Those victories were not flukes. They were the sounding of an alarm. Eala was arriving at Wimbledon as the world number 30, seeded 29th, and armed with a confidence that borderline on invincibility. Adding another fascinating layer to her preparation was her decision to team up with tennis royalty. Eala partnered with none other than the legendary 7-time Grand Slam champion, Venus Williams, in the doubles draw at the Bad Homburg Open. Imagine the wealth of knowledge, the tactical nuances, and the sheer championship mentality that Venus imparted to the young Filipina during their run to the quarterfinals. Venus Williams even referred to Eala as her best partner. That kind of endorsement from one of the greatest grass court players in the history of the sport is not handed out lightly. Eala absorbed that wisdom like a sponge, refining her court positioning, her transition game, and most importantly, her aura on the court. She walked onto the Wimbledon grass, carrying not just her own formidable skill set, but the tactical echoes of a Williams sister. On the other side of the net stood Renata Zarazúa, the gritty, resilient Mexican veteran currently ranked 76th in the world. Zarazúa is no pushover. She is a defensive stalwart, a player who makes her living by extending rallies, retrieving seemingly impossible balls, and frustrating opponents into making unforced errors. She is crafty, she is intelligent, and she has history on her side. Back in August of 2024, at an ITF event in Cary, North Carolina, Zarazúa had outlasted Eala on a hard court, wearing the younger player down in 3 grueling sets. Zarazúa knew how to get under Eala's skin, how to disrupt her rhythm, and how to force her to overplay. Furthermore, the two were actually doubles partners at the French Open last year, meaning Zarazúa had an intimate, up-close understanding of Eala's tendencies, her strengths, and theoretically, her weaknesses. Zarazúa walked onto court expecting a battle of attrition, a chess match where her experience and defensive guile would eventually crack the young prodigy. But what Zarazúa did not account for What she could not possibly be prepared for was a terrifying evolution of Eala's game. Let us get into the core of the matter, the superpower that left Zarazúa completely paralyzed. When we talk about a superpower in tennis, we are usually referring to an unreturnable serve like Serena's or a heavy, spinning forehand like Nadal's. But what Eala showcased in this match was a hybridized weapon that we have rarely seen executed with such devastating precision on a grass court. It was a marriage of a lethal, flattened-out, left-handed inside-out forehand, combined with an extraordinarily low center of gravity and hyper-aggressive baseline positioning. Historically, Eala has been known for her heavy topspin, a product of her training on European red clay at the Rafa Nadal Academy. Topspin is great for clay, where the ball bounces high and waits for you. But on grass, the ball skids, it stays low, and it rushes you. The traditional clay court forehand can be a liability at Wimbledon because the elaborate backswing takes too much time. What Eala and her coaching team recognized, and what they completely overhauled for this season, was the mechanics of that forehand wing. She shortened her backswing significantly. She stopped dropping her racket head below her knees, and instead opted for a more compact, linear takeback. But the real magic was in the point of contact. Eala was taking the ball incredibly early, hitting it on the rise, and driving directly through the back of the ball, rather than brushing up the back of it. This technical adjustment birthed a terrifying shot. The ball was rocketing off Eala's strings like a laser beam, maintaining a trajectory so low over the net that it barely cleared the tape before biting into the grass and skidding away at lightning speed. For a defensive player like Zarazúa, who relies on having a split second to read the bounce and adjust her feet, this was an absolute nightmare. By taking the ball early, Eala was systematically stealing time away from the Mexican. It was an offensive suffocation. Let's break down the tactical execution, because it was a masterclass in exploiting a specific geometry of the court. Eala, being a left-hander, naturally looks to dictate play with her forehand. Her primary pattern in this match was utterly relentless. She would serve out wide on the ad court, pulling Zarazúa completely off the screen. Zarazúa, fighting just to get a racket on the ball, would float a defensive slice back to the middle of the court. This is where Eala's superpower was activated. Instead of hitting a traditional cross-court backhand, Eala would explosively pivot around the ball, opening up her hips and unleashing that terrifying inside-out forehand directly into the vacant deuce corner. The sheer violence and precision of this shot were mesmerizing. Zarazúa, recovering from the wide serve, was constantly caught flat-footed. She would take one step toward the deuce corner, realize the sheer velocity of the incoming ball, and simply stop. We saw this happen time and time again. A professional tennis player, known for her speed, literally reduced to a spectator on her own side of the net. The spin Eala generated wasn't the looping, bouncing topspin of her past. It was a heavy, driving spin that pushed the ball through the court, making it accelerate upon contact with the grass. Zarazúa looked completely bewildered. She was trying to dig out balls that were skidding at her shoelaces, traveling at speeds she simply could not process. But it wasn't just the sheer pace. It was the element of disguise. Because Eala had shortened her backswing, Zarazúa had no visual cues to read where the ball was going. Eala's shoulders remained perfectly closed until the very last microsecond before impact. She could drag the ball heavily cross-court, catching Zarazúa leaning, or she could flatten it out down the line for a clean winner. This incredible disguise meant that Zarazúa was perpetually guessing, and against a player hitting with Eala's accuracy, guessing is a fatal proposition. The psychological toll this takes on an opponent cannot be overstated. Tennis is a game of problem-solving. When you are losing, you analyze your opponent's patterns, you look for a weakness, and you adapt. But how do you adapt when your opponent is essentially playing a different sport? Zarazúa tried everything. She tried looping the ball high to push Eala back off the baseline, hoping to neutralize the angles. But Eala, displaying magnificent footwork, simply stepped in and took those high balls out of the air with swinging drive volleys. Zarazúa tried slicing the ball low, trying to force Eala to hit up and generate her own pace. But Eala, utilizing that incredibly low center of gravity we mentioned earlier, bent her knees, got down to the level of the ball, and shoveled it back with even more venom. There was a specific sequence in the middle of the first set that perfectly encapsulated the helplessness Zarazúa felt. Eala was up a break, serving at 30 all. Zarazúa hit a brilliant, deep return that landed right on the baseline, a shot that would normally neutralize the server and start a neutral rally. But Eala did not retreat. She held her ground, absorbed the pace, and hit a blistering half-volley forehand winner down the line that painted the chalk. Zarazúa just dropped her racket head, looked up at her player box, and gave a hollow laugh. It was the laugh of a competitor who realizes they are outmatched not just in skill on the day, but in sheer physics. There was nothing she could have done better. Eala was simply untouchable. Let us also talk about the movement. Grass court tennis requires a very specific type of footwork. You cannot slide into your shots the way you do on clay, and you cannot rely on the gritty traction of a hard court. You have to take small, choppy steps, keeping your center of gravity low, and constantly making micro-adjustments as the ball takes unpredictable bounces off the turf. Historically, this has been an area where younger players struggle, often looking Bambi-esque on the slick surface. But Eala moved with the grace of a gazelle and the precision of an assassin. Her split step was perfectly timed, allowing her to explode in any direction the moment the ball left Zarazúa's racket. This supreme movement allowed Eala to play an aggressively high court position. She spent the entire match towing the baseline, refusing to yield an inch of territory. By standing so close to the baseline, she was taking the ball incredibly early, robbing Zarazúa of recovery time. It felt as though Eala was playing ping-pong, while Zarazúa was playing tennis. The ball was coming back across the net before Zarazúa had even finished her follow-through. This relentless pressure creates a suffocating claustrophobia for the opponent. Zarazúa felt rushed on every single shot, leading to a cascade of forced errors. When you feel like you have no time to breathe, let alone set your feet, your technique breaks down, and that is exactly what we witnessed. Eala's court positioning was the anvil, and her forehand was a hammer, and Zarazúa was caught squarely in between. We also have to credit the mental fortitude Eala displayed. It is one thing to have a tactical game plan. It is entirely another to execute it ruthlessly on the grandest stage in tennis. This was her first time playing as a seeded player at a Grand Slam. The expectation from her passionate fan base in the Philippines were astronomical. She was playing an opponent who had beaten her before. The pressure could have easily caused her to tighten up, to revert to her safer, more defensive clay court habits. But instead, she embraced the moment. She played with a joyous, unburdened aggression. You could see it in her body language. Her shoulders were back, her eyes were locked in, and there was a quiet, lethal intensity in her demeanor. She was not just trying to win. She was trying to send a message to the rest of the locker room. And that message has undoubtedly been received. As word of this demolition sweeps through the Wimbledon grounds, every single player left in the draw is taking note. Eala is no longer just a promising youngster with a bright future. She is a terrifying present-day reality. The top seeds, the established champions, they are all looking at the draw sheet, tracing the lines, and hoping they do not have to cross paths with this left-handed buzzsaw. The potential second-round matchup against either Maya Joint or the legendary Serena Williams, who is back on a wild card, looms large. If Eala plays with this level of baseline aggression, this blinding speed, and this tactical clarity, she is capable of beating absolutely anyone on this surface. This match against Zarazúa was not just a victory. It was an unveiling. It was a moment Eala officially transitioned from a dangerous prospect to a bona fide contender. The superpower she unleashed, that devastating, time-stealing, low-skidding forehand, is tailor-made for the Wimbledon grass. She has cracked the code of surface, blending her natural power with the tactical nuances required to succeed here. She has learned how to make the grass work for her, rather than fighting against it. Think about the evolution we have seen in just 2 short years. The player who lost to Zarazúa in North Carolina was raw, emotional, and tactically predictable. The player we saw today was a cold-blooded tactician, a physical powerhouse who dismantled a seasoned professional with surgical precision. It speaks volumes about Eala's work ethic, her coaching team, and her sheer burning desire to reach the pinnacle of the sport. She didn't just want to qualify for Wimbledon. She didn't just want to win a round. She wants to leave an indelible mark on this tournament. And if this first-round performance is any indication, she is well on her way to doing exactly that. As we wrap up this extensive breakdown, It is impossible not to feel a profound sense of excitement for what lies ahead. We are witnessing the blossoming of a generational talent. The sheer helplessness that Renata Zarazúa experienced today is something we might see replicated in the rounds to come. Eala has arrived, and she has brought a superpower that the rest of the tour is entirely unprepared for. The speed, the aggression, the tactical brilliance. It was a flawless performance that will be analyzed and rewatched by coaches and players alike. But for us fans, it was simply a joy to behold. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into one of the most spectacular first-round matches in recent Wimbledon history. If you enjoyed this level of detailed analysis, if you love breaking down the tactics, the mechanics, and the psychological warfare of professional tennis, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss an upload, because as Eala continues her march through this draw, we will be here to dissect every single shot, every single strategy, and every single moment of brilliance. Drop a comment down below and let me know your thoughts. Do you think Eala's superpower can carry her all the way to the second week of Wimbledon? Can anyone on the tour handle that left-handed onslaught on this fast grass? I want to hear your predictions. Until next time, keep your eyes on the court because the Eala era has officially begun, and it is absolutely thrilling to watch. Take care, everyone, and enjoy the rest of the championships.